kidneys help the bladder expand and fill up with urine until we're ready to eliminate it or void it. A couple of different names you can give to the process of eliminating urine through the urethra, the tube down here that leads to the outside. I mean, names that we can use, of course. Urination is the one I think most people use. But if you ever hear the word micturition, that's the same as urination. You might hear the medical folks use that sometimes. It's spelled like this, micturition. Equals. And voiding is another term they use, voiding the urine from the bladder. Micturition is how you say it. I knew him once. People get these words mixed up if they're not used to these terms. They've used the term urethra before. They can often get it mixed up with ureter. And one way I would remember this is I remember that there's a thra at the end. It sounds like kind of like through, and that's the tube that urine goes through to leave the body. So if that's the way to remember it, that's helpful. Now, there are other things you can glean from this model, like the specifics of bladder structure, which we have photographed and put in the guide. That's what you're seeing right there at the bottom of this thing. But you can also see kidney structure quite well in it, too. I tend to use the bigger models for explanations, but you know by now that when it comes to test time, we'll use any model available. But primarily the big ones are the ones I like. And that brings me to another point I must remember too, and not forget to tell you, is that we're having a quiz when you come back from Thanksgiving. Now next week, you're not going to be here. But the 29th of November, when you come back from that week after Thanksgiving, we will have a urinary quiz. And that time we'll do the reproductive system in here too, and then the following week is your last lab exam.
Yay.
And it's over with. But on that quiz, the quiz will be, I'll tell you right now so I don't forget to tell you later, the quiz will be like any other quiz. There'll be 2 models, maybe 3 if I have one for a bonus. I could either ask a written or a model for a bonus, but at least there'll be 2 urinary models, plus the rest of them will be, of course, a combination of multiple choice and completion review questions that are in the manual, and now of course, keyed in Angel too. But I just wanted to say that before I forget it. I'm liable to. I'll also put it in Angel, but I just want to make sure you remember that. Now, it gets a little busier now. We're looking at the model of the kidney, which is this model right here. We got a lot of others here, of course, but again, this is the biggest one. Incidentally, this is, and please don't pick this up like I'm doing it. You drop it, we don't know what's in there. It could be radioactive or something. That's a human kidney. That's a real kidney right there.
Would you get superpowers then if it's radioactive?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just hope there's no krypton in it, that's all. This model right here is the same one you see pictured up there. And the first thing to look at in the kidney, though we will see more stuff when we look at Adam, there's more outside the kidney than just what we're seeing here, supportive stuff, but the kidney is enclosed by a connective tissue capsule, as organs would be, of course. And you notice we put the word renal in front of most everything. What does that mean?
Kidney.
Kidney capsule sheaths the kidney. And we get this round part here on the model. And then deep to that is a dense layer that is packed with little filtering units called nephrons, which are the main workers inside the kidney. Kind of like the worker bees in there, you know, doing their job. And that's called the cortex. And you've heard the word cortex before. It's an outer layer of a structure. Like the adrenal gland, the cerebral cortex, and so on. Well, we have a cortex to the kidney. we'll say more about nephrons a little bit later and what they're doing. Deep to the cortex is a rather extensive layer. Let me show you with my hand here, since I have not got better technology to do this. This whole area right in here, right through there, is the medulla of the kidney, renal medulla. And the most apparent structure that's in that medulla are these, in this section anyway, these fan-shaped structures that are kind of darker, the streaks in them. All of those are renal pyramids. They have a three-dimensional structure, which is kind of like a pyramid, but we're looking at it in section for the most part. Now, the other model that you saw, the full model as well as this one, has some three-dimensional views of pyramids too, not just sectional views. But this one deals more with the being cut, as you will have when you look at the kidney dissection too. You're going to cut through the kidney and section through them, so you won't get a true three-dimensional view of them that way. But they're very important parts of the kidney. Now, most of the formation of urine occurs out here in the cortex. After all, that's where the major parts of your little nephrons, your filtering units, are out there. And that's not all the only place the urine is formed out. As the urine passes down through the pyramids, there are a whole bunch of tubules the urine will pass through. And once it gets to the tip of the pyramid, right in here, the lighter part that we call the renal patella, that's the inner pointed apex of the pyramid, it is then urine. It will drain out through a number of tubules and be collected by little funnel-like structures that we'll look at later. We'll have another view of them, the drainage system of the kidney. All of this thing looks like a hand sticking up in here. All these structures, we refer to that as the drainage system. It takes the urine, collects it, and passes it out of the kidney to eventually put it down in the bladder, of course. The parts of the kidney that are actually making the urine would be, number one, the cortex, and number two, the final processing of the urine takes place in the renal pyramids. When you look at these pictures, and particularly when you look at the model, even the dissection will indicate this, is filled with tubules passing, in life anyway, passing urine down through there, into that area. Now, in between each pyramid, there is cortical tissue that squeezes down between it. You can see it here. Here, every place you see a blood vessel, here you can see two blood vessels. In other words, every place between a pyramid, the last part here is called a renal column. And their main purpose is to act as a passageway or conduit for blood that is flowing from the renal artery by way of other vessels out into the cortex. Because you're going to have a tremendous and continuous blood flow out here in order to filter that blood and make urine from the filtrate. So, capsule covering the entire kidney. And by the way, it doesn't, well, it does kind of show it too. The capsule does indeed come up inside the kidney too. You can see it curves up inside. And in life, there's a lot of fat in here as well. Cortex beneath the capsule, where nephrons reside and where most of the urine is made. The medulla contains pyramids through which urine passes to finally be turned into urine. And then between the pyramids, where the vessels spread out into the cortical area, columns, renal columns. Now let's go in the next view and look at the collecting system of the kidney. Part which picks up the urine once it's formed and stores, and drains it out of the kidney, takes it down to the storage place, which is the bladder. But you're clear on what we're looking at right here now. And you'll see it on the model today too. Same model, except we're looking strictly at the drainage system now of the kidney. We're looking at these finger-like structures, the tan structures, which come up inside here. And if you look real closely, you will see like this, I guess the best view of it is this pyramid right here. It comes to a point, the papilla as we call it, the renal papilla, and sitting right at that point is a little funnel-like structure. Imagine my fist is the papilla of a pyramid. Here's that little funnel, and that papilla sits in it like this. That little funnel we're going to call a minor calyx. Minor calyx will invariably be receiving urine from a renal papilla of a pyramid. So when that urine comes draining down through all those tubules and gets to that tip of the pyramid, almost like a pepper shaker, a salt shaker, there are a bunch of little holes in the tip of that papilla, and urine drips then or drains into the minor calyx and collects it. There are a bunch of minor calyces here. Calyces, by the way, is plural for that. And we can see here, if you look at this, I know it's kind of hard to see the distance, but with all these arrows over it particularly, but you see a minor calyx there, there's a papilla.
Oops.
I hit my I thought you died, right? Anyway, if you look right here, here's a papilla and there is a minor calyx, right? Here's a papilla of this pyramid, there's a minor calyx. So all of these are minor calyces. But look what happens when they come together. They form a larger channel. There happens to be one here too that's open, but there's a larger channel here. It's called a major calyx. And they're variable in number, just a few of those in the kidney. But once all of these calyces, minors and majors and all, once they come together, they pass the urine into a central cavity in the kidney here, called the renal pelvis. Strange the name for that, but you think of pelvis as our hip, of course, but that's what they refer to, the central cavity in the kidney, which collects all the urine that's to leave it. And there, this passes out through the hilum or hilus of the kidney. That's the opening here between these two parts, forming the ureter. And where is the ureter going to go?
To the bladder.
To bladder, urinary bladder. Yeah. And notice that again we can spell hilus with the US or with hilum with the UN. That's the opening into the kidney. It's kind of the doorway in and out, because notice what's coming in. What is this red thing right here? And we'll see it more clearly in a minute. Renal artery, that goes in. Renal vein comes out, and so does the ureter through the opening called the hilum. So the kidney has one too, just like the lung had one. So that's the collecting system. So out here the urine is made, passes down through the pyramid, the papilla into the minor calyx, maybe into a major, pelvis, ureter, bladder, urethra, and we're finished with that stuff. You see a bunch of vessels in here which we're going to explore. We're going to look at the different arteries and veins in this PowerPoint as well. But you follow me on the major parts: cortex, medulla containing the pyramids, and we have the columns between the pyramids. The drainage system with minor calyces passing the majors, passing the pelvis to ureter and out. So let's do a look at kidney arteries right now. We know this artery already, the renal artery. We've studied it before. What major vessel gives rise to the renal artery? Specific artery that gives rise to the renal artery. Branches off of it, left and right. You guys need to go back and do aorta, abdominal aorta, yes. Now the renal artery begins to branch. It has a lot of kidney to go to, so it branches into what are called segmental arteries.